My plans are focused on working people, the middle class, and what we must do to strengthen hardworking people.
Vice President Kamala Harris and her team are prepared if Donald Trump declares victory before all ballots are counted in the presidential election.
This is a person, Donald Trump, who tried to undo a free and fair election, who still denies the will of the people, who incited a violent mob to attack the United States Capitol, and 140 law enforcement officers were attacked.
She made this statement during an interview with NBC News. Hallie Jackson conducted the interview, which was taped at the US Naval Observatory and aired on Tuesday evening. Harris, the Democratic presidential nominee, answered questions about President Joe Biden's debate performance before withdrawing from the race.
Joe Biden is not on the ballot. I understand that. But the reason that you are at the top of the ticket is because he dropped out of this race. And so I want to ask you, and it was largely because of that debate performance back in June. You defended him in the days before and in the days after as you were campaigning for another 4 years.
She also addressed whether she would pardon former President Trump and the historical importance of her candidacy as a woman. In one key moment, Jackson asked Harris if she had been honest in her support for Biden's re-election bid. Jackson inquired, "You never saw anything like what happened on debate night behind closed doors with him?"
Anything like what happened at the debate night behind closed doors with him?
Harris responded,
"It was a bad debate. People have bad debates."
Referring to the June face-off between Trump and Biden. Jackson suggested that Biden's poor debate performance led to Harris becoming the Democratic nominee. Harris replied, "Well, you'd have to ask him if that's the only reason why he stepped down."
Well, you'd have to ask him if that's the only reason why.
Harris stated,
"I am running for president of the United States. Joe Biden is not. And my presidency will be about bringing a new generation of leadership to America."
She then defended Biden's political accomplishments and leadership. She said,
"I speak with not only sincerity, but with a real firsthand account of watching him do this work. I have no reluctance in saying that. No, of course I don't."
Jackson asked Harris how she would respond if her Republican opponent declared himself the winner before all votes were counted. "We will handle election night and the days that follow as they come. We have the resources, expertise, and focus on that," Harris said.
And we will deal with election night and the days after as they come, and we have the resources and the expertise and the focus on that as well.
In the hours after the 2020 election, Trump falsely declared himself the winner while votes were still being counted.
And we were getting ready for a big celebration. We were winning everything, and all of a sudden it was just called off. The results tonight have been phenomenal, and we are getting ready. I mean, literally, we were just all set to get outside and just celebrate something that was so beautiful, so good.
Trump currently faces accusations of pressuring officials to reverse the 2020 results and deliberately spreading false claims of election fraud. When asked if her team had considered a similar scenario on Election Day next month, Vice President Harris responded,
"Of course. This is a person, Donald Trump, who tried to undo a free and fair election, who still denies the will of the people, who incited a violent mob to attack the United States Capitol, and 140 law enforcement officers were attacked. Some were killed. This is a serious matter."
If you win, it is entirely possible that the federal court cases against the former president will continue on. He is, of course, facing those felony charges. Would you consider, if you win and he's convicted, a pardon for former President Trump?
I'm not going to get into those hypotheticals. I'm focused on the next 14 days.
When asked if pardoning the former president would help unify the country, Harris responded, "Let me tell you what's going to help us move on. I get elected president of the United States." Harris was also asked if the U.S. is ready for a woman of color to be its next president.
Let me ask you about something that you said when you were running for president the last time around, back in 2019. At the time, you said that the elephant in the room was whether the country was ready for a woman and a woman of color to be president. So let me ask you, as you sit here today, do you think the country is ready now for a woman and a woman of color to be president?
Absolutely. You know, I think part of what is important in this election is really not only turning the page, but closing the page and the chapter on an era that suggests that Americans are divided.
Jackson then pressed Harris on why she had been reluctant to emphasize the historical nature of her candidacy while campaigning. If elected, Harris would be the first female president. Harris responded, "I'm clearly a woman. The point that most people really care about is, can you do the job, and do you have a plan actually to focus on them?" Instead, she explained that her challenge on the campaign trail is to ensure that she can engage with and listen to as many voters as possible.
Think of it that way. My challenge is the challenge of making sure I can talk with and listen to as many voters as possible and earn their vote. And I will never assume that anyone in our country should elect a leader based on their gender or their race.
I will never assume that anyone in our country should elect a leader based on their gender or their race, she said. Instead, that leader needs to earn the vote based on substance and what they will do to address challenges. Later, Harris discussed her agenda, focusing on reproductive rights and access to abortion.